Hello, this is Garrett Martin. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of MileStone Community Builders. MileStone Community Builders is a locally owned and operated real estate development and home building company. We're one of Austin's largest home builders, and we are the largest locally owned and operated home building company. We have built a great reputation as a home builder by securing the best locations in and around Austin and building architecturally unique homes that our customers actually want to live in. I'm sitting here today to talk with you about the Bull Creek property and the community planning that we've been undertaking, along with the results from the survey that were announced publicly on February 11th of 2015. I have with me here today Robert Deegan, who's going to walk through a lot of the survey results with me for your information. Before we get into the actual results themselves, I wanted to reiterate the different rules that we're holding ourselves accountable to throughout this public engagement process, and that we're asking for reciprocation from the neighborhood. Integrity, honesty, a common ideology, meaning that we're working towards creating the very best project that we can on the Bull Creek track, and then finally compromise. Our interaction so far with the neighborhood has embodied these concepts, and we're grateful for the reciprocation that we've received so far from the neighborhood. So thank you very much for that. On top of it, thank you very much to the 700 plus participants that participated in our survey and gave us the wonderful, meaningful feedback that will help us bring the vision that we're trying to create to fruition. I wanted to address one question that I addressed on the 11th before we jump into survey results, and it's a simple question that I've been asked by numerous people, so I thought I would ask it to everybody and give you the benefit of hearing that question. So the question was something along the lines of, how could you bid $47 million on a piece of property and not know what you're going to build on the site? And the answer is that we knew that the development of the site worked for a wide range of potential uses, including a low-density residential use, which we execute on daily as a home building business. Because of the range of potential uses, we have significant flexibility in what we can build on the site, and the flexibility gives us the unique opportunity to truly engage in a public input process that's open and honest. We're making plans to execute on the detailed results from the survey that we received, which will serve as the backbone for what gets built on the project. And I want to assure everybody that the process that we're engaging in, I think there's some skepticism out there, and I want to assure you that the process that we're engaged in is very honest and candid, in that we are factoring in the input that we receive from the neighborhood into the project and what will ultimately get built on the site. Okay, so let me mention one other concept that may give you some assurance that we are, in fact, listening to what everyone has to say, and that there's not some secret plan off to the side that we're going to reveal someday that is the plan that we actually want to build there. We're crafting our plan around the feedback that we're receiving. You guys have been dealing with the possibility of a project on this site for the last 2 years, or even greater than that. And we've been working on the site for roughly 2.5 months. There are 4 critical areas of study that are instrumental in formulating a fully formed concept plan, which is what we ultimately plan on showing the neighborhood after we get through this process, and then the planning process that we're engaging with the architects that we've hired, which will take about 45 days from the 11th. At least that's our target for being able to reveal that concept plan, that more fully formed concept plan to the neighborhood. So that's going to involve a bunch of feasibility. That's where does the water flow, and where does water come from, and wastewater go, and the market study that's associated with the project, traffic study, which is an integral part of this particular site and a critical component that we've been spending tons of time on, and then finally your vision and the surveying effort, and the results of the surveying effort will help us create and craft that fully formed concept plan. So thank you for the patience that you've had with us, and thank you for the engagement in the process, and we're looking forward to revealing that fully formed concept plan about 45 days from now, after we've had the chance to create it based on our discussions that we've had so far and the discussions that we had on the 11th. So what are we here to say? What did we say on the 11th? We went over the survey results, and we confirmed what we had heard from you in the surveying. We presented a graphic foundation for the master plan for the community, which was a color-coded exhibit that you'll see here later today that shows you what the survey results indicated. We also asked for additional feedback, and we had a pretty extensive Q&A session that we had on the 11th, and that Q&A will be put on the website in the form of a frequently asked questions and then our response to those questions. Finally, we mentioned to people that they could find the information on the website, which is milestonebullcreek.com, milestonebullcreek.com, and that they could also sign up for the Bull Creek listserv on that website so that they could stay fully informed as it relates to the project. Okay, so I also gave a little background on the 11th about how we got to the point that we were at and what our process is going forward. So the survey that we conducted is a continuation of the results of the work of the Bull Creek Coalition, which was in the spring of 2014. The Bull Creek Coalition conducted a survey, which we're very grateful to have. It was a big part of getting us started in the right direction. Our survey, and the job of our survey, was to add more detail to the prospective uses that were considered both in our survey and the BCRC survey. As a simple example, our survey was designed to facilitate our understanding of trade-offs between density and open space. How much of it, where should it go, how would it be located, what people envisioned as the use for the open space. Another simple example is to identify how much commercial people wanted to see within the site, the type of commercial and the intensity of the commercial use. And overall, our goal was to establish a continuum that represented people's desires relating to a host of site development considerations. And with that information, we could then maximize everyone's desired uses on the potential site, and then ultimately create and present a common vision for what's going to be most appealing and least offensive to all people that are engaged in this process with us. The continuum that we're trying to establish can give us a statistical understanding of what people want and what people don't want. And in doing that, we get great information that we can then go craft a vision around that will be highly appealing to hopefully everybody. So that's the goal of the process, and that's where we're at in the process. I'm going to take you through a quick overview of the site, and that will help familiarize everybody with where we're at, and then Robert's going to take you through the survey results in greater detail. So at the top of the slide that you're seeing on your screen, you'll see that to the north of the project and slightly to the west of the project on the northern side, there's SF2, which is a single-family zoning designation. They're basically houses, detached houses. And then to the east of the site, there is a one-story unzoned warehouse. It's kind of a large industrial building, not the prettiest building you've ever seen. There is also to the southeast of the property some single-family 3, which is a higher intensity use single-family designation than the single-family 2 designation to the north. And that single-family 3 designation to the east of the site includes primarily single-family residences, and then to the southwest of the site includes some duplex as well as single-family residences. On the further west of those residences are some office buildings occupied by the Texas Department of Transportation and the Texas DMV. And then as you move further north of the site, there is, of course, the Westminster facility, as well as a little medical office over there, a little plastic surgery center, and then finally a 4-story apartment building. The Westminster stuff is 5-story assisted living and just a general residential use there. And then the 4-story building to the north, I think most people are probably familiar with. It's pretty intensive use there. So that's the location in and around the site. And let me introduce Robert to you. Robert's here to review the survey results with us. Robert's had a distinguished career planning projects all around the country and throughout Central Texas. Some of his most recent work includes work on the Lock and Terror Resort in San Antonio and work on the Pearl Brewery in San Antonio. Robert's one of the smartest people that I know. We're lucky to have him on the team. He's also a resident of the Highland neighborhood and a member of the Highland Neighborhood Plan Contact Team. He's also a board member on the City of Austin's Environmental Review Board and a member of the Highland Neighborhood Parks Committee. So Robert, appreciate you being here to review the survey results. I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the neighborhood for their outstanding participation in the survey. As you can see, we had over 700 responses to the survey, including a healthy number from all the neighborhoods around the site. Unsurprisingly, the neighborhoods closest to the site, Ridgely, Oakmont, Westminster, Rosedale, had some of the best turnout rates. We also had a good number of respondents in the other category, which primarily consists of Post Apartments residents, residents from other nearby neighborhoods such as Brentwood, residents who identify with some of the smaller neighborhoods within the area, such as the 45th Street residents or Shoalmont residents, and a handful of interested people from around Austin. Overall, we think we really got a good cross-section of opinions with this survey, with really great participation by the people who will be most impacted by the development that occurs here. The first thing I'll do is walk you through some of the results of how you rated the various character images and development types. First, a reminder, you were asked to rate each image on a 1 to 4 scale. If you scored an image a 1, that basically told us that you didn't feel it was appropriate on the site anywhere. 2, 3, and 4 told us the development type was appropriate in specific areas of the site, or in the case of 4, anywhere on the site. The upshot of this is when we look at these average scores, and what we're going to show you are average scores, anything that rates above a 2 was generally considered to be acceptable on the site by more than 50% of residents. And the closer that number gets to a 2, the more confined the area of the site where it is appropriate becomes. We asked this question as a 1 to 4 gradient so that instead of eliciting just a yes or no response, we would have that more nuanced understanding of just where the community thinks that those uses are appropriate on the site or how much of the site they're appropriate on. So first, looking at the results on the residential character images, we generally saw a very positive response to the single-family residential products and a positive response to townhomes and stacked flats. Retirement and workforce housing also received positive ratings. The highest density residential uses, the high-rise residential, did not score well, and I'd say the community sent a pretty clear message that these uses are more intensive than what you feel is appropriate on the site. On the commercial side, the highest scores went to neighborhood retail and restaurants, places with limited regional draw, but that would be a great place to live within walking distance of. You also gave favorable scores to some of the moderately dense mixed-use communities we showed. And again, the highest intensity uses did not score well, nor did the regional retail. Here's something interesting that jumped out to us as we reviewed the results. The images on the left were rated considerably more favorably than those on the right. In the top, the two images depict very similar types of mid-rise residential multifamily housing. On the bottom, the top 2 to 3 floors in the buildings shown on the left are the same type of office uses depicted on the right. What we took from this was an understanding that the mid-rise residential uses and office uses become much more appealing when integrated into thriving mixed-use communities with neighborhood retail and ample green space than when they are single segregated uses. I also want to take a moment here to address office uses in particular. Generally, the office uses we showed you did not score very well. I suspect this is because the neighborhood sees them and thinks they will bring traffic with no real benefit to the neighborhood. However, both studies and practice have shown that office uses are a critical component of a successful mixed-use development. They provide practical benefits, such as internal trip capture, people living and working on the same site, shared parking with different peak demands, and lower traffic generation versus residential and retail uses at similar intensities. Just as importantly, they provide the daytime presence and activity that makes the restaurants and coffee shops work, the parks active, and the community vibrant. I say this in hopes that you may be willing to continue to have a dialogue and keep the door open to office uses on the site, not as dedicated campuses, but as an integral part of a mixed-use community, such as the one depicted on the lower left. Next, we'll take a look at some of the parks and open space results. Generally speaking, most of the parks images rated well, but we did note strongly positive responses to some of the more natural areas and larger open spaces, as well as the trails. I think we heard this as a message that there are some parts of the site, especially near Shoal Creek, that the community already loves and would like to see the best elements of preserved. Only the highly urbanized plaza image scored poorly. While an urban plaza could exist on the site as part of a mixed-use development, it's clearly not what you envision as part of the community-focused open space on the site. The results and what you told us as far as which amenities you most and least wanted in the open space really reinforced the desire for open areas, dog parks, trails, and other neighborhood-friendly uses. Skate parks, sports fields, amphitheaters, and other regional draws did not score as well. We also asked you to provide some more general feedback. The word clouds here were generated from the text of some of the responses to our more general questions about what you love about the site, what your concerns are, and just looking at those clouds you can start to get a picture of kind of what's on the community's minds. But I've also pulled out a few of the themes we saw and heard repeatedly. Don't make traffic worse. That's probably the thing we've heard the most. Connectivity and pedestrian access. Heard a lot of people talking about how it's a little bit difficult to get to the site now, and they'd like to see more access points and better pedestrian and bike connectivity. Beautiful heritage trees on the site and a desire to see those saved. Wildflowers on the site. Heard a lot about those as well. Great downtown views, great location. Heard a lot of people just talking about why they love living here, the location, the friendly neighbors, the peaceful natural character of the area. Also heard some desire for some improvements around the site, such as sidewalks on Bull Creek and some of the other roadways surrounding the site. Heard a desire to actually improve Bull Creek Road in front of our site, and desire for more affordable and diverse housing, especially housing that could serve the needs of some of the workers at Seton and Westminster. And then desire to protect Shoal Creek. Finally, we asked you a couple of questions about development density as it relates to this plan. The first point to make here, and we think this is very important, is that 65% of all residents said that they would prefer greater density and more open space over less density and less open space. This is critical for us to hear as we try to draw that balance ourselves between maximizing open space and ensuring economic viability. On the left, you see the bubble plan that hopefully you recognize from the survey. We asked you to help us prioritize different areas of the site with this plan. First, we asked you to help us prioritize where the highest density uses should go on the site. Generally, you said the highest density should go along Bull Creek Road, especially adjacent to the existing high-density uses, and weighted toward the north end of the site. You also indicated that the lower densities should occur closer to Shoal Creek and along the existing Ridgely neighborhood. Your open space priorities pretty clearly focused on Area 6, which won in a landslide, with again the lowest priorities along Bull Creek Road. Area 6 makes a lot of sense because that's where the heritage trees are, that's where Shoal Creek is. It's also interesting to note that Areas 2 and 4 rated higher than Area 5. Which we took that to indicate that you'd rather have usable open space interior to the site than string it out in buffers around the edges of the site. So we took those results and we attempted to combine them into a single map, one that may begin to represent a foundation for us to build on based on the priorities that you have given us. The purple to yellow gradient shows us where your priorities for greater density versus lower density are, and the green gradient shows us your priorities for open space. So where do we go from here?
Okay, so we considered a lot of different development scenarios for the site, and we're working through sort of the mixed use, moderate density residential with some neighborhood commercial, some apartments and some office uses. And in doing that, that's ultimately what we understood from the survey results that the neighborhood wanted. But in a bigger picture context, we really considered two other concepts. So the first concept was the high intensity commercial project that you guys had previously seen before. And this project was proposed a couple years ago, and I think it was the impetus behind the creation of the BCRC and some of the neighborhood, the intensity of the neighborhood engagement in the process 2 years ago. The neighborhood pretty clearly expressed that they didn't want a regional shopping center, an HEB, a large regional HEB, along with some higher intensity uses that would drive traffic into the neighborhood. And this, we really feel like this particular land plan doesn't incorporate some of the planning principles that we want to see put in place with the project, ideally to reduce traffic and enhance the lives of the people that are living in the project and around the project. Furthermore, it doesn't meet our internal legacy, our goals of creating a legacy project with long-term enduring value, which is kind of our mission statement or our mantra that we have created internally to try and drive how we're thinking about this project and thinking about what we want to see created over here. So ultimately, we pretty quickly checked this one off the list as a potential development scenario and development plan. And we think that the neighborhood, and certainly have gotten feedback indicating to us that the neighborhood would agree with us removing this plan from the potential plans that we could create on the site. The next one is a little different than I think some of the other uses, and this is our bread and butter. For us as a home building company, this is very well suited for us. It's how we won the bid on the project. We looked at it and we said, what is the worst case scenario from a density and usability perspective that we could achieve, and we crafted our strategy around that. And that was a standard density residential project with a limited amount of park space on the site. And ultimately, this is an easy to execute, limited complexity plan that we could go put in place in a relatively short amount of time. Traditional zoning category. That's, again, very easy for us to execute on because it's what we do on a daily basis. So why not build this plan? This isn't ultimately what the neighborhood wants, and that was pretty clearly voiced to us in the survey results. And the plan for us really is something that we could go execute on, but the neighborhood doesn't want it. There's limited common open space within the project. We think that's probably one of the things that's most objectionable from the neighborhood perspective. Finally, it doesn't meet our internal objective of creating a legacy project with enduring value for the next 100 years for the broader neighborhood. So ultimately, we nixed the idea of putting the standard density plan in place and started gravitating towards a mixed-use plan, which is the neighborhood's preferred course of action based both on the survey results from the BCRC survey and then also the survey results that we conducted. The mixed-use plan will enable us to create great outdoor space that will help us maximize the space both internal to the project and external to the project. As we were moving through the planning process, we met with a bunch of different architectural firms, and one of them mentioned a nonprofit out of New York that specializes in creating open spaces, and it's receiving growing international acclamation for some of the open spaces that they're creating. And there's a quote on their website that really spoke to me and I thought made sense, and that was something along the lines of, when seeking to understand the most critical elements of creating incredible gathering space for people, it turns out that people are in fact the most critical element, meaning that the open spaces that you create within the project really become activated by having vibrant community and people within those open spaces to really make them everything that they can be. And so that's something that, as we move into the planning process here on the Bull Creek tract, that we're very focused on, both the natural open spaces within the project and then also the open spaces in the squares and the community spaces within the overall mixed-use area itself. The other thing that mixed use does is it enables us to minimize the traffic impact of the project by creating a project where people end up doing more within the project instead of going outside of the project to achieve their personal and their professional goals. Office space enables people to work within the project. Neighborhood services enables them to eat and do errands within the project. Open space and gathering space enables them to socialize within the project, all of which can have a reducing impact on traffic. It also enables everyone in the broader community to do the same things that I've listed above, to really get engaged in what we hope is a legacy project that will provide value to the broader neighborhood. You can come and really enjoy some of the things that we envision building in the project itself. Okay, so that's just a brief kind of overview on the mixed use concept that we're going to begin planning on and trying to move down the path as we move into the more detailed aspects of the planning process in light of these survey results. Robert?
So looking at this gradient map that is basically an interpretation of your survey results and has steered us towards this mixed-use approach, how do we start to understand what this means in terms of what's going to be built there? Well, what we can do is we can go back to look at how you rated the various character images and development types, merge that with this map that shows us where those development priorities are, and start to paint a picture of what the site might be. So the blue area along Bull Creek and weighted toward the north end of the site would likely contain some of the highest density and many of the non-residential uses that the neighborhood supported, such as those depicted in these images here. This wouldn't necessarily represent the entire blue area, but these sorts of uses would likely primarily occur in the blue area. This would be the heart of the community. The yellow zone would include the more moderate density, primarily residential uses, such as those depicted here, ensuring compatible uses abutting the neighboring residential areas. And the green area along Shoal Creek represents a signature park that would reflect the best character of the site as it exists today, its trees, wildlife, and wildflowers, with enhancements and amenities to serve not just this new community, but your communities as well. This is not a land plan by any means, but it does start to give us some direction as to what types of uses the community wants to see here and where you'd like to see them. And we think this is a foundation we can build on. As we develop a plan from this foundation, we'll also start to sprinkle in some other key elements, many of them also drawn from your feedback, that can make this a truly great and enduring community. These elements could include an improved sidewalk or trail along Bull Creek Road that provides a wider green buffer, enhanced pedestrian and bike connectivity, and a good venue for the wildflowers this site is known for. Higher density uses would likely still be present along Bull Creek, but with more of a parkway feel that improves compatibility, reduces the canyon feel that some of you were concerned about, and provides a wildflower-strewn green space that's readily accessible to all. Another element may be a signature green or community common surrounded by neighborhood retail, perhaps situated near the top of the site to capture the existing views of downtown. This truly could be the beating heart of this new community, a classic urban park that would not only serve as the cultural center of the new community, but as a gathering place for all of the Bull Creek communities as well, for farmers markets, 4th of July picnics, or just a drink with friends after work. And the community could be tied together with a series of green belts through the site that preserve some of the great trees and wildflowers and provide green connections to the park along Shoal Creek and the community commons. These connections not only link the site to itself, but reach out and invite the surrounding communities in. These elements may evolve, shift, or change character as we collaborate to develop a plan for this site. But these kinds of essential elements, combined with the site-appropriate uses and sensitivity to context that your survey results show, provide us with an excellent foundation from which to build a community with an enduring legacy at Bull Creek.
Thank you very much, Robert. The other thing that we talked about on the 11th is we talked about some of the critical issues that we're going to be working on as time progresses that relate to the planning of the project, and identified those just to make sure everyone knows that we're working on them. Traffic was one of those critical issues that we've spent an enormous amount of time on. It came up in the Q&A sessions that were held on the 11th, And it's something that there's really a variety of different things that you have to do as it relates to the scientific study of traffic. But we first start out by collecting data that relates to the traffic, and that's our little boxes with the little tubes that run across the intersection streets, so that we understand the current performance of each of the intersections that we're dealing with. And then we go and we look at the impact of additional trips on those intersections that will be produced by our project. And then we, from a modeling perspective, try and understand what mitigating factors we can put in place in order to ensure that traffic either is maintained or ideally is improved from its current conditions. And so those mitigating factors can include things like signalization timing, can also include expansion of the right-of-way and expansion of intersections and roads around the project. And so we're working through, we've got a bunch of engineers working through those considerations right now, and ultimately hope to be able to present some mitigating factors that will help with the traffic situation around the site as we move forward into our planning process. The continuation of the Shoal Creek Trail is another consideration that we've spent a fair amount of time on and will continue to spend time on as we move into the details of the planning process. The Shoal Creek Trail currently stops at 35th, and it'd be wonderful if it could connect up north into the site and all the way ideally up to 45th. We really only have control over the segment of the trail that lies within our site, and that's something we're excited about. We love the notion of being able to facilitate connectivity in a broader way within our site. And so that's certainly something that we're looking at internal to the site. And then we're going to be working with the City of Austin and the Parks and Recreation Department to try and understand if there's any way to extend the trail from 35th all the way up to our project. The other thing that came up is schools and school occupancy. There's actually two concerns that relate to school occupancies in Austin right now. There's overcrowding and undercrowding of schools. So basically not enough students and too many students. I've heard both concerns from the neighborhood, and in recent times it's been the underutilization of schools has been publicized in the news media. We're working on that. We've spent some time now with the demographers from the City of Austin, or I'm sorry, from AISD. And AISD has done a wonderful job of very quickly engaging with us, which we're excited about. And so we're going to continue to work through the impact of our project on the school system as we proceed through the planning process here in the coming months. Again, there's open space treatment and activation, and of course the project overall, which will be major components to our planning as we move forward. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast, and we hope to see you at the next meeting so that we can get the chance to meet and talk in person. Thanks a bunch.